A deadly weapon unleashed, the Separatist battleship Malevolence advances unopposed through Republic space, tearing apart any ship that stands in its path. After a daring rescue and narrow escape, Anakin Skywalker prepares a counterattack on the enemy ship and its diabolical droid commander, General Grievous. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Star Wars The Clone Wars Retro Discussions. Today we're going to be talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 1, Episode 3, Shadow of Malevolence. Now, normally my intro guy is supposed to wait for me to get this part out of the way before he does his thing, but then I guess he decided to come in here, do his thing, and leave, so whatever. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. And also head over to my other YouTube channel called Top 10 Character Moments and subscribe there as well. Link for that channel will be in the description below. The episode that we're going to be talking about today was directed by Brian Callen O'Connell. I believe I pronounced his name right, and if I didn't, I apologize. And written by Stephen Melching, who has written all of our episodes so far. This is part 2 of the Malevolence Arc at the start of Season 1, and so it's interesting, because, this is the first show, you guys, because I was little watching this show. I didn't really watch too many TV shows like this growing up, where they had, arcs to them, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I feel like The Clone Wars, I'm just trying to think back, was one of the first TV shows that I ever really got into. And ironically, it's my favorite TV show ever. Which I know might sound crazy to some people, but it's the freaking truth. That in Rebels. I'm not even joking. But yeah, this was my first exposure to a multi-episode arc, and there are so many great arcs throughout The Clone Wars. I actually did a video on my channel talking about my top 10 favorite Clone Wars arcs. So if I remember to, I'll leave a link in the description below, and hopefully you guys will all check that out as well. But this is all about Anakin Skywalker and his boys setting up an attack on the Malevolence. Anakin kind of goes over the plan of how they're going to defeat Grievous and his battleship. And he's like, look, I believe a squad of bombers, we can get through, our target's gonna be the bridge, Grievous, we're gonna get this done. And the clones sit there where's the general, sir? We've been waiting for a chance to take him down. And it's interesting, because Plo even brings it up later when he walks into the meeting, when he says, Master Skywalker appears to have inspired great confidence in his men. And I'm like, yeah, he has inspired great confidence, but I think there's also a certain level of ego that also comes with that. And what a coincidence, the word ego is part of our cookie for this episode. Easy is the path to wisdom for those not blinded by ego. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I just kind of wanted you guys to keep that in mind. Because Shadow Squadron talks about, right, we're undefeated. There hasn't been a single mission we haven't been able to complete, and, minimal casualties, all this stuff. And then we get to Grievous, who's coughing up a storm so much for the Jedi escort. And I'm like, whoa, Grievous coughing all of a sudden. We didn't get this in the first episode with him. Also, Dooku, I don't believe you one bit when you said that those battle droids are expensive, because it comes after when one of the droids is like, this is a lot more fun when they're not shooting back, and the other one's like, I still can't seem to hit anything, and Grievous just smashes his head to pieces, and Dooku's like, those battle droids are expensive, General. I'm like, since when? Count Dooku is the richest person in the galaxy, and him sitting there, oh, those battle droids are expensive. You cheap mother effer. And they even talk about, if we're gonna really go deep into Dooku's riches and stuff, Bad Batch even covered what Dooku, not only was Dooku very wealthy, but he took from other planets as well to make him even more wealthy. But Dooku gives Grievous the coordinates for his new target. And I should also point out as well that Dooku is here via hologram, because last time he was actually there on the ship with Grievous. This time he's just there via hologram. He says, I have a coordinates for a new target. It's a Republic Outer Rim medical station that's treating over 60,000 wounded clones. He even says, you will do them a favor and put them out of their misery. I'm like, damn, that's dark. We get back to our fellow heroes, and we see that they're going to be going in Y-Wings, which is really cool. So, Y-Wings, you guys, were a big part of the A New Hope battle scene with the Death Star. That's one of the 2 ships that the Rebellion used to destroy the Death Star. I didn't realize at that point that Y-Wings were used in the Clone Wars. If that was something that was actually made new because of the show, I think that's very interesting. It does kind of set up an idea from Rebels as well, when the Ghost Crew goes after Y-Wings, it's those bombers, they were a big help to us in the Clone Wars. Yeah, they might be old, but they still got what it takes. I like that. It's kind of adding lore to stuff that we've seen in other parts of Star Wars. And so we got a total of 12 ships that are going, plus Plo Koon. We're introduced to a new character in this episode, and it's not just any type of character. It's a Kaminoan by the name of Nala Se. Oh, Nala Se, Nala Se, Nala Se. Now, with this episode, you guys, we don't really, we get Nala Se a little bit, but we don't really know too much about her yet, right? Judging by this episode alone, if we're not taking anything else from Clone Wars in context, Nala Se seems like a very nice person. She seems like a very caring person. Now, as we get, further into things later, we go on a massive roller coaster with this Kaminoan, I tell you. Through a lot of ups and downs towards the end of the war and even into Bad Batch. We see her in a couple scenes in this episode, we see Obi-Wan chatting with her, trying to make sure that the Naboo, I've contacted the Naboo, they're sending ships to help you. Because I guess they're in, the Rendelia system, near Naboo. We just see Nala Se in, couple other parts of the episode as well, making sure that the evacuation is going smoothly, and towards the end of the episode where she says, it looks like Anakin's gonna fail the mission, and the one clone says, "We should go, madam," and she says, "I will stay." Again, it just shows you that she does seem like a very compassionate person. But in order for our boys to make it, in order to stop Grievous in time, to get to that medical station, they gotta take a shortcut, and they gotta take a shortcut through a frickin' nebula. Scanners don't work in this place, and as Anakin said, it's old-fashioned flying. You gotta feel your way through to stay on course. And even Plo says, "Clear your mind, young one, and you will see the path." And Ahsoka's like, "I can't see anything at all right now." And one of the clones is like, "I always know where I'm going." I think it was Broadside who said it, right? Because we're introduced to several members of Shadow Squadron in this episode, Broadside being one of them. And he's like, "I always know where I'm going. I'm gonna blow up that battleship." And Plo just makes the side remark, "A clear path if ever there was one." Shout out to James Arnold Taylor, who does an amazing job with the voice of Plo Koon, and also of Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. And as a side note, I was a massive Johnny Test fan growing up as well, so also know James Arnold Taylor through that as well. But I guess Anakin knew about this shortcut because it's an old smuggler's route that pilots used to talk about on Tatooine. And every time I listen to him say that in this episode, I always think back yeah, Anakin was that little boy on Tatooine, wasn't he? Because I feel like it's such an interesting dynamic between, the prequel movies and the Clone Wars, because we hear about in Revenge of the Sith a little bit, right? How Anakin was this, massive general. I think they talk about it in A New Hope a little bit as well, when Obi-Wan's talking with Luke about the Clone Wars. But we never actually get to see that on display, whereas here we do. And then when you see that general side to Anakin, you do kind of forget, oh yeah, he was that little slave boy on Tatooine. But anyway, this path is called the Balmorra Run. And Plo's like, "Balmorra Run?" And I'm like, wait, what's about to happen? And Ahsoka's like, "I'm picking up a contact." And I'm now taking you back to the first time I'm watching this. And Plo's like, "We need to turn around. And Balmorra's the nesting grounds of the giant Nemre mantis." I'm like, wait, what is this? What's coming? And all of a sudden these giant creatures just appear from out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my gosh. Now luckily, getting through these guys, it wasn't bad at all. They really didn't sustain much damage other than Matchstick had taken a little bit of damage to his engine, and then one of the pilots lost their droid. So minimal casualties. So far, this group is sticking to its word. We remain undefeated. I would like to give a quick shout out to Count Dooku as well. There's a moment when he contacts Grievous, midway through the episode, he's like, "I've received intelligence from Lord Sidious. The Republic has launched a small strike force to attack the Malevolence." And I'm sitting there like, yeah, man, that Darth Sidious guy, he must have some great intelligence. It's almost like he's trying to he's within the Republic trying to destroy it within, but I'm just overreacting. It's probably nothing. I got nothing to worry about. I think there was a scene with Yularen and Obi-Wan where they talk about they've evacuated 50% of the clones that were in that medical station, and Obi-Wan's like, "No, that's not good enough. They're not going to finish by the time the enemy arrives." Luckily, Anakin gets there, and they got to take on a bunch of vulture droids. Grievous orders the cannon to fire, even though he knows his own ships are going to be caught in the blast. He doesn't care. While Shadow Squadron cares about minimal casualties, Grievous doesn't care about any casualties.
Fire!
Incoming!
Make towards the edge of the ray, now! Give it everything you've got!
And as they start reaching the edge of the ray, right, they're trying to avoid the beam, and Matchstick's engine fails, and he crashes into another pilot, and then we see that 3 of the ships get caught in the beam, and so they're doing their check-in. Ahsoka says, "We lost Matchstick, and we lost Tag. Shadow 6, 7, and 10 were caught in the ray." So if they had 13 ships, and they just lost 5 of them, that's pretty much half of their fleet right there. And this is where Ahsoka brings up the idea of like, we need a new plan. You can make it, but everyone else is getting shot down. Of course, talking to Anakin. And I think this goes back to the cookie of like, easy is the path for wisdom by those not blinded by ego. Because Anakin he's constantly full of ego. Like, that's just part of who he is. Like, especially with the fact that he's the chosen one and everything, right? So it's like, no, we're gonna destroy that bridge. We're gonna destroy Grievous. We're gonna end this right now. And it's like that moment then when Plo says, look, if we can do enough damage, the weapon might overload before Grievous tries to fire it.
If we can do enough damage, the weapon may overload when Grievous tries to fire.
And that's kind of the moment where Anakin wakes up and is like, all right, I gotta get my head out of my butt and realize, like, all right, we ain't gonna be able to do this successfully. We gotta destroy the weapon, and at the very least, we'll save the people that are on that medical station. They go through with it, they bomb the cannon overloads when it tries to fire, and the ship takes a ton of damage. Both cannons are pretty much disabled, the hyperdrive is disabled, and to make matters worse for him, Obi-Wan and his fleet of 3 ships arrives. Plo throws in the from a certain point of view line, because Ahsoka's like, I believe it was my suggestion to change the plan, and Anakin's like, that's kind of true, Snips. And Plo's like, from a certain point of view. I think it was a group effort. I think both Ahsoka and Plo helped out with the decision making there. Ahsoka started to plant the seeds in Anakin, and then Plo finally made him wake up, and it's like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. And then the final scene of the episode is Anakin and Ahsoka talking with Nala Se. She says, don't take the lives you saved lightly, and Anakin's like, I don't, but I also don't take the lives that I lost lightly either. Which I think it does go to show like the good heart that Anakin has and the fact that he does care about his troops. And for any general that does care about their troops, like, it is a taxing thing to see the people around you die, to see people go into battle to sacrifice themselves for the lives of others. And then the episode just ends with Anakin and Ahsoka staring out the hangar doors and the usual. So overall, you guys, another good episode of the Clone Wars. I like that we got a space mission on this one. Like, yeah, last week we had a bunch of spaceships as well, but this one we actually got to see like a bunch of starfighter combat, which was really cool. And again, bringing back the Y-Wings and adding lore to those ships, what's not to like? So yeah, you guys, that's, I think, all I've got to say on this episode. Next week, we're going to be talking about the final episode in this arc called Destroy Malevolence. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel, and I will see you guys next time.